What's going on, everybody? I hope you're all having a fantastic day. So today's video, I am going to do my movie or show review, I guess, of Loki, the newest Disney Plus show on Marvel. It finished about 2 weeks ago now, so I've really had a lot of time to let my thoughts resonate with it, let my hype get taken down a bit, just give the most honest review that I possibly can. So first off, I will say it's, for me, easily the best of all the MCU shows. It was entertaining. I liked the slower pace of it because you got to learn more about the characters. I liked all the characters involved, especially like Mobius, Sylvie. I thought they were great additions. And before I talk anymore, I do want to point out that there will be lots of spoilers in this, so nothing is being covered up. If you haven't seen the show, don't listen to this because I am going to be spoiling absolutely everything. So basically, starting off with episode 1, I was really skeptical because, like many people, I shared the sentiment where I felt they sent off Loki really well in Infinity War. His death was powerful, was emotional, was a really great spark for Thor to keep his motivation up throughout the movie. And when in Endgame they basically confirmed that he was going to be coming back, and when the show was confirmed, I was like, oh, okay, that's whatever. I guess I'll watch it. So my expectations were really low going in, and honestly, I think this helped me so much more to enjoy the show because I had no expectations. Thought it was going to be kind of bad, and not going to lie, but it was so good. So it starts off, so you have essentially Loki immediately after Endgame, where he takes the time stone and he goes away, gets caught by the TVA, which is the Time Variant Authority, which is a really cool organization and world building tactic used in this story. So basically, they are responsible for keeping the what's called sacred timeline in order, which ensures that everything goes the way it's supposed to. Nothing gets out of check and everything's okay. So the person who catches him is going to send him to this judge so that he can get what's it called pruned, which we all think is going to mean like death for Loki. But Owen Wilson, Mobius, comes in and saves him and says, hey, I kind of need your help with something. I want to learn more about you. And the first episode is really cool. It's like an introspective into Loki and who he is, why he does the things he does. And I really like when Owen Wilson leaves and then you see just Loki looking at his future where he reconciles with Thor and eventually gets killed by Thanos. And you see like the change in emotion in his eyes. It's just a really cool scene. I also like when he escapes, when Mobius lets him go, and he finds these Infinity Stones in like the guy's like paperweight dress, and he's like, nothing makes sense here. It was just a really cool moment because they were supposed to be like the most powerful items in the universe, as it was in the Infinity Saga, but in the TVA they're literally just paperweights, as he says. So really cool concept with that, and I really like how he's so cool with like the world building as the TVA because you've never really seen it before, and now they did a really good job establishing it within the first episode, and they did a good job establishing Mobius and like what everyone does in the show, like everyone's role. So then we move into episode 2, and this one was, oh my god, this one felt like a second to last episode finale. It was so good. So essentially you have Loki searching for himself because he is a variant, and he is also searching for another variant of himself who has escaped the timeline, because this variant is causing basically mayhem and causing nexus events, which are things that could change the timeline. You essentially have to prune things in order to get the timeline back to normal. So Owen Wilson basically recruited him to help him catch himself. So it's really cool because at one point in the episode, Loki finds out that this variant of himself has been hiding in apocalypses where basically no matter what happens, it will not affect the sacred timeline because everyone will die. So they went to Pompeii and they just started doing like random things. Loki jumps on a cart, starts singing and dancing, and you see that there's no like branch in the timeline being created because since nothing's going to change no matter what they do, it's fine. So they find out that this variant is hiding in nexuses. They find one to go to that she would most likely be at, and they eventually find her. It's a woman version of Loki. Her name is Sylvie, and she was just an amazing character. So right from the start, she starts talking to Loki, and she was like, oh, you were the one sent to find me. How pathetic, you're like not nearly as good as I am. And it kind of funny because it's like such a Loki thing to say as she's saying it to a Loki. So I really like that. And then at the end of the episode, it's essentially her leaving to go to the TVA with the Tempad, and then Owen Wilson gets left in the apocalypse by Loki. So a really nice wrap to the second episode. And then episode 3, it gets a lot of hate, and I don't know why. It is a really solid episode in my opinion. It's a nice character building between Loki and Sylvie, and I really enjoyed it. So it's the one where they move to the apocalypse Lamentus, which is basically, I think, a moon crashing into a planet or a planet crashing into a moon. So it's a really cool concept, and basically they have to find a way to get out of this apocalypse before they are killed along with it, and before they can find out who's really behind the TVA and why they're telling all these lies. So they get to know each other really well. You learn that Sylvie was like been hunted since she was really young because she did her Nexus event from a very young age. She escaped the TVA once, and now she wants to bring them down to like repay for what they did to her life. So that's a really cool concept with her, and I love the banter she has with Tom Hiddleston and Loki. That's the thing I have to also commend. The performances in this show were just absolutely spot on. Tom Hiddleston always as Loki is good. Owen Wilson was fantastic. And I don't know who plays Sylvie, but she was just so good at delivering her role. So yeah, I really like this episode and the fact that you see the bond forming between them. The romance is a little bit weird, I say, because it's like Loki falling in love with himself, which I find funny because that is something Loki would do. But I also, it's still a little bit weird. It feels kind of forced. So that's the only problem I have with the episode. There's not much to say about it. It's just a lot of like character development, which I liked. It was a very slow-paced episode, but I think it was very essential for the show to continue on its path that it was going on. So that's my thoughts on Lamentus. And then we move on to the fourth episode. Don't remember what this one is called additionally, but it is, oh, it's so good. So it essentially starts with them making it back to the TVA, and Loki gets put in like this time loop thing. So you see Loki reliving this one memory where I don't remember what her name is. I think it's like, yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember. But it's one of the Asgardian friends of Thor, and she's essentially telling him that he's worthless, that he's nothing, and he just keeps reliving this. And meanwhile, Owen Wilson and the like TVA leader lady are celebrating finally taking them down. You know, they say the sacred timeline, but Owen Wilson feels very like not confident in her and that she might be hiding something. So he goes into Loki's time loop, and Loki explains everything, like why they're there, that the people working for the TVA are actually variants and they had a life before this. So Owen Wilson pulls him out of the time loop expecting to, you know, go take the TVA down, but they're already waiting there. And he gives one of like the best lines in the whole show where it's like, he says, if I could go anywhere in the world right now, I'd go back to where I was really from before all this. And then they prune him. So at this point, we all thought that Owen Wilson died, and it was like the worst thing that ever happened in the show. But after that, Loki and Sylvie are both taken directly to the Timekeepers, which were thought to be the people who created the TVA. But there's a fight that breaks out between the people who pruned the variants and then Loki and Sylvie, and they fight, and then they go to attack the Timekeepers, but it's revealed that they are not real. Like, they're giant robot heads that just talk, so they're all really confused at this point. They don't know what to do, so Loki is talking with Sylvie. He's like, you know, this is the end of the line. We just have to move on from this. And as he's talking, he gets pruned. So we all thought Loki was dead, but at the end of the episode, it shows him with the other versions of himself. So we got Crocodile Loki, Old Man Loki, then Kid Loki. So we have all these new versions of him, just telling him that you need to come with us or else you're going to die. And then we move into episode 5, where it starts very on with Sylvie pruning herself. So she goes to the same place that Loki did. We find out that there was this large beast called a Goliath just guarding something in this prune world, where it's like just a bunch of like Nexus events that have been pruned. So Mobius is there and stuff like that. But we start off with Loki. We find out about all these other old men or other versions of Loki. So you got Kid Loki, killed Thor. That's why he's there. You have Norse Loki, President Loki. They're all there. It's a really, really fun time just seeing all of them banter with each other. But eventually it becomes just Old Man Loki, Kid Loki, Gator Loki, and Normal Loki. Sylvie hops in a car with Mobius, which I thought was a very funny reference to Cars, the movie, because, of course, Owen Wilson is Lightning McQueen. Don't know if that was on purpose, but I really appreciated it. So, anyway, they find this Goliath, and they realize that the person, whoever created the timeline, is essentially using that as their guard dog, and that they need to get past it. So, Sylvie comes up with a plan to enchant it, and that's how they are going to find out who did this timeline. So, they start their plan, it starts going sideways, and then we get one of the coolest shots in all of Marvel, if I'm being honest. It's when Old Man Loki uses his enchanting abilities to start building an Asgard out of like illusions. It was so cool, the visuals, and it was just one of the most stunning things I've ever seen the MCU done. So huge kudos to whoever designed that scene, because it was really something else. So moving on from that, they eventually do enchant the Goliath, and the episode ends with them walking through and going to see who created this timeline. So we start episode 6, the season finale, by Owen Wilson going back to the TVA. Essentially, he asks the overseer of the TVA why she's falling, and that she knows they had a life. Why is she not changing any of this? So she leaves to go find out why things are the way they are. And after that, we move on to Sylvie and Loki, which is where we get into Kang. So Kang is the next villain in the MCU. So he essentially starts off as this like really nice guy. He's like, guys, I'm giving you the sacred timeline. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not my life anymore. I need to pass it on to people like you. And he gave a really good performance. I don't know the name of the guy who plays him, but he's so good, and I can't wait to see him in the future. But essentially, Sylvie thinks he's lying. She thinks that if they kill him, everything's going to go back to the way it was, that they have free will. This Kang is essentially saying that you don't have free will. I write everything into existence and keep everything the way it's supposed to be, and I want you guys to take that over for me. But Loki thinks he is telling the truth, and that if they kill him, all the timelines will go to hell, and that a million different versions of himself will just come to fruition. So they fight the entire episode. It's really interesting with like just them talking about decisions in the timeline with Kang, the villain that we know is going to be the guy. So there's this one point where they cross what's called the threshold, where Kang does not know what's going to happen. He is clueless. He doesn't know this far into the future, and he says that to Loki and Sylvie. Sylvie doesn't believe him. Loki does. So they fight. Kang watches, says they need to hurry up, and eventually they come to a standstill in the fight, and Sylvie essentially apologizes to Loki, pushes him through a tempad, and then she proceeds to kill Kang. So at this point, you see the huge epic shot of branches being made in the timeline, everything going to absolute hell. Loki runs through the TVA to find Mobius, explains to him everything that happened, and it's revealed that he doesn't remember who Loki is. The TVA is being completely rebuilt, and then the show ends with just a shot of a statue of Kang in the TVA. So amazing end to the season, easily the best season finale and best show that Marvel has made so far. I really enjoyed it. I think it had great future implications, but mostly the show itself was just so interesting. I love small character studies that focus on people rather than a giant goal. So it was just awesome. I love the show. I recommend you all watch it if you haven't seen it yet, because not only is it important for the rest of the MCU, but it is a really good show on its own. So that's going to be it for my review of Loki. Let me know what you thought of it. If you've seen it in the comments below, let me know if you think agree with my thoughts. I want to hear what you guys thought of it, because I love talking about these sorts of things. So, I won't be doing one of these until Shang-Chi comes out. So I do hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.